Let's get down to brass tacks. I'm out and about trying to cut a voiceover for you goons out there. Welcome back to another episode of Forgotten Gear Restorations, and we are tackling a vintage Dynaco 70. That's a 35 watt by 2 hi-fi power amp. What makes it so cool? Well, first of all, it's vintage. Secondly, modified. Check out the driver board. Check out the quad of KT66 as well. This one's making noise, so let's get down to it. And we are looking at the right bank of tubes. This is the right power amp. We have some loose sockets there, and I'll tell you something else, that these KT66s are probably near the end of their service life. This one back here is no longer conducting. This guy here, this guy is. So you're losing the benefit of having some common mode noise rejection on the right hand channel, and that's manifesting itself as 120 hertz hum. This guy remains warm to the touch, only being warmed up by the heater or filament supply in there. However, this dude here is bouncing electrons off the glass. So I don't know what kind of health that one's in, but it's definitely still conducting. And you can see some carbonara on the tube base where it fades from a very dark, let's call it mocha, down into the lighter brown color. And then this guy right here, same deal. And you can say the same thing about these guys over here holding up the left channel. On the left channel, there's no predominant 120 hertz hum. There is, however, a bit of 60. And my frequency tool here, at least the one I use for cursory inspections, is it's bouncing around 60 hertz. So are we looking at an aged tube with the heater cathode issue starting to develop somewhere in one of these guys? That's possible. That's totally possible. But we're going to get this thing sorted out regardless. Now, I'm going to go ahead and yank these tubes. And on the top, you probably can't see on the top of the glass, I have some dry erase marker. That's basically saying 1A and 1B, and then over on the other side, 2A and 2B respectively. And that's going to help me keep track of where these guys sit in their little home environment there. So I'm going to go ahead and pop those guys out. And I'm going to take some preliminary measurements. And we'll also flip the chassis over and take a peek down there as well. You had suspected that this old CE manufacturing cap can sitting back here was a suspect, and maybe it is. It looks relatively new. Now, judging by their coating here at the bottom, it's either from 2022 or from 2001, and I can't quite interpret what it says, but I'll take a dive online to look. But in any case, she did supply another one from dynakitparts.com for you Ampeg aficionados. That's their equivalent of fliptop.net. For you old school guys who know about .net and .orgs and all that stuff. It brings you back to a better place in life when things weren't so damn messy and complicated out there. But all right, next order of business is I will pop these old gold lions out and start taking some measurements, and we're going to find out why this dude's not conducting, first of all, pardon me. And we're going to see what kind of noise and ripple we're getting on this various supplies here on both of these channels. Bye. All right, let me get you down here. This is a better view of the little hand grenades there, and you can see the condition. Now, is this an indicator of the electronic condition of the tubes? No. What does it tell you? Well, I mean, just from a glance, Sorry about looking at my hairy knuckle. From a glance, you can tell that as we go towards the left, these guys are running progressively hotter. Doesn't mean that they were overheating, no. It just means that they were in service for longer. And it appears that this guy, and this is the one that I was referring to earlier, at least maybe it's the socket, maybe it's the tube. This is the guy who hasn't been conducting for a little while. But these guys are up there in age, and I don't have my tester anymore. These are from like 2011, from the 14th week of 2011. I can't test, like dynamic mutual conductance or anything like that, or tell you anything about leakage or any of that stuff. I can just give you a visual look and tell you electrically what kind of environment they're sitting in, and we can judge based upon those factors. So let me get some tools on this chassis and then we'll get going. And we're back. I will flip her off of the current limited circuit. We are not running output tubes. Therefore, I do not have to connect it to a load. Now I have a little more flexibility to move her around. But I'm going to try to focus this shot, because I honestly have no choice, on, if you look at my meter here, let's focus on that for a moment. And we'll take some voltage measurements. All right, now I'm going to start with the B side over in that socket number 2. All right, actually I should switch there, shouldn't I? Yes, you should. All right, we have 457 plate volts, 457 volts at the screen. Should have some negative voltage there. In fact, let's just take the negative voltage, which will be our bias supply, and just go around the clock here. Negative 37. Oop, this one's inverted. All right. Check this guy once more. So we have minus 37 for all sockets. Awesome. So that's not the cause. Nice. 452, 457. Plate voltage. Okay, there we go. These sockets need to be cleaned. It's giving me a little bit of a different reading depending on where I probe it. Nice. All right. Nice. Beautiful. And beautiful. So we have equal screen, equal bias, and equal plate voltage sitting in the sockets. Let me just look at the heaters just because. And on these guys, it's pins 2 and 7, if I'm not mistaken. Nice. 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 That's nice. That's nice. Is that nice? That is nice. And that's nice. Let's check ripple. We're going to stay on the AC. I just want to see what kind of ripple we're going to get off of this rectifier here. We're going to look at ripple off of the bias supply, plate and screen supply. So let's take a peek here. Wow, that's actually quite low. If it's 140 milliamps off of the plates, that's pretty damn low. Uh, 57, 60, let's call it 60 millivolts of ripple on the bias supply is not good. So we're going to change that cap out, and we'll look at what kind of decoupling we're getting. Yeah, so we're going to want to change that out for certain. Let's look at the plate supply again. That's remarkably low. Generally speaking, in generalities, like if I'm seeing like 3 volts AC of ripple right off of the reservoir cap, then it's pretty damn good. That is pretty damn good. So let's flip her over and take a peek and see if anything is just staring us in the face here. Obviously, we're going to have to go through and check all the other caps, and we're going to check the resistors. And we're going to make sure these old solenoids aren't leaking as well, but it doesn't appear that they are. All right, now if you want to take a quick peek inside, you can see the new driver board there in green. Well, it's the only board in there. And what we'll do is we'll go over to this little blue terminal strip here, and you'll see that your bias supply is sitting on there. So I'm going to take another measurement there directly, but also I'm going to measure the cap can itself that's in there directly and see what kind of ripple we're going to get off there. I'll be right back. All right, super cool difference in topology between guitar amps and hi-fi. This is pretty much the first hi-fi thing I've looked at in such a long time, and that was the first time I looked at a hi-fi thing was right out of school. So this is really cool. So with this, when you're looking at the supply topology, it's basically the 5A4 rectifier goes into the first reservoir cap, then it goes into the choke, then it goes into the second cap, and you got the B plus node, then you got both output transformer center taps. So if you're looking at it, the KT66's plates are receiving their B plus after the choke and not directly from the reservoir cap. Super cool. Super cool. So this thing is using the choke to filter the supply feeding both the output transformers, and that essentially you're looking at reducing the residual 120 hertz ripple that's reaching the output stages. That's the whole idea. And as a result of all that and where the placement of the choke is, that thing's carrying a hell of a lot more current than it would be in a guitar amp where it's just seeing the screen supply. So a super interesting design here. And I'm gonna go, hey Mike, I'm gonna go meet you to get your tubes, buddy. Bye. Alrighty, I'm in the middle of installing a new filter cap can, and the old CE unit is out. And I'll get back in with you guys once I'm finished with that. And I just noticed something really cool. I got some backup rectifier diodes on this tube rectifier socket. I like it. It's a good move. All right, so I got your new bias supply caps there. Some new metal oxides up top. We have some, I reused this guy here. He's in great shape. However, I did change the other one, which was out of spec. We got a new metal oxide guy there. And that's about it. So I'm going to set the bias as negative as I can, and then we'll move on to cleaning and retensioning the sockets, and we're going to get all that stuff going. I'll be right back. All right, KT66 is 1.67. We're at 1.68. But that's a little spicy. So let me do some research really quickly on where this amp wants to be.
Well, we're moving on now. We're moving on up.